filter to the front here so we can start filling out all the seats in the front. In the front is fine. Just gonna try and fill out these seats as much as we possibly can. If everyone can move to the front of the room so we can fill out all of these front seats here, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Keep going, keep going.
Hi, if everybody could fill out these front row seats here so we can start. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
We should put that in the bag. We can put that on the bag.
How's it going, guys? All right.
one more thing I want to follow up before that ties it up, which is if you see SVN lock, there is no lock on SVN, so it's your lock. I'll go with that.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the summit. We're here today to talk about cloud-based DR. Our specific example today is around Oracle and the automatic storage management solution we've designed in conjunction with one of our clients. But we're here to talk about it's basically cloud-based DR and some of the advantages you can get from doing that and some of the complexities around it. So originally we had TaylorMade in to speak with us. This is the solution that we've created for them. Unfortunately, they've hit their own disaster. Chris was unable to make it. He had booked on United, was day trading on the NYSE, and he was reading the Wall Street Journal all at the same exact time. So he was unable to join us today. But we're here to represent what we did. He sends his best regards. My name is John Landy. I'm the CTO of DataPipe. At DataPipe, we're going to do an intro of what DataPipe is. My background is around software development, software architecture, primarily in software as a service and solutions built around the web. With me is Jason.
Hey, I'm Jason Kaval, Solutions Architect at DataPipe. Nice to meet you all.
Great, so first we're going to kick off and give you just a quick background on both DataPipe and TaylorMade. Jason's going to play the role of Chris.
All right. So for those of you that don't know, TaylorMade is one of the largest golf companies in the world. They've revolutionized a number of key golf technologies. They were bought by Adidas back in 1999. Most PGA pros use TaylorMade, so they're a pretty well-recognized brand. Innovated the middle driver back in the late 70s, early 80s, kind of super leader in like golf technology. Aerodynamics, weighted drivers, things like this, in terms of golf technology market. So large golf leader there?
Yeah, so TaylorMade is both a large manufacturer, but also a large employer of people around the world. They're a global company. And our implementation today is to talk about an Oracle ERP implementation we've done with them. And so we're DataPipe. DataPipe is a managed service provider. Everybody probably has a different understanding of what managed service providers do, especially in the cloud. But what we do is we work with clients to ensure that we plan, build, and run their environments properly. So that properly may be, certain compliance, or certain security needs, or certain performance characteristics around that. And the infrastructure that we work with is in public cloud, primarily with AWS. We've been a partner of AWS since 2010. We've been working with them and other private cloud offerings, as well as we have data centers. So what really differentiates us is around our global footprint. We have about 21 data centers globally, as well as clients and support personnel around the globe. We have a large inventory of infrastructure that we provide for our clients. So we specialize in hybrid deployments, which would be running some sort of your infrastructure in a co-located data center or on a private cloud that we provide, as well as public cloud, either burst into the cloud, or in this case, utilizing some part of the public cloud for the disaster recovery solution. And we've been recently named one of the managed service partners with AWS. I think there were 6 named. We were one of those names. So we've been working really all in with AWS since primarily the beginning, and now we've been recognized as that. So to get on to the actual solution, or what we're talking about today, as we talked about TaylorMade, they have specific needs and requirements, but these are very similar to all of ours. Number one, the goal of the project was we have a disaster recovery solution for an ERP system that we've designed. It's currently running in a co-located data center with managed services on top of that. And it's sort of mothballed in a way that it's not very often tested, although it is standing up and running and costing money. So the real need here was around taking that disaster recovery solution and doing one in the cloud so it can be more elastic. We're not paying for those fixed capital expenses over time, and we're also not paying a monthly fee to actually have that stored in the server room, where we do have to have management services and still provide all the same sort of capabilities we do for our live production system. And then the other part of the whole project was that going to the cloud was new for TaylorMade. So how can we actually do that, even though they had a very experienced IT and operational team, as well as an architecture team on the software side and an IT team supporting their HRIS systems. They needed to get to the cloud and be able to do that in a quick and timely manner. And so there are also a number of technical requirements with the solution.
Absolutely. Like with any DR requirement, there is a low RPO and RTO time. So 4 hours, 4 hours max in both those categories. The amount of data that was changing daily was enormous. We're talking about 1 terabyte of data changes daily, if not more. Tons of concurrent users. The test and restore basis with a lower head was important for them. Replication, OS patching, all this good stuff. 2 terabytes of storage is what we're talking about on a daily basis with at least 10% growth. And also having more of the geographically distant sites recovery. Yeah, so I think the RPO and RTO were not extreme in this case, but does anybody out there have an RTO that's less than 4 hours for their systems that they're running today? I'm not sure. Okay, I do, but that's it. So we design the systems and a number of different things, but really looking at those business requirements and working down from there. So what are some of the challenges? Yeah, so there's a number of technology challenges in implementing the solution. The EBS was the lifeblood of this organization, so they couldn't afford any downtime whatsoever. They had a ton of concurrent users all around the globe. At any given time, there's 300 or 400 users, so it had to scale. The challenges with deploying Oracle and AWS are many. ASM was one of them. We had to work through all those technical challenges. Disk allocation, working through this, and then also to make sure everything's secure. We don't want any attacks or anything like that, so we would ensure uptime. So we really came into two options here. We were looking at RDS and then EC2, and the initial pros of going with AWS with RDS, or using RDS on AWS, was that RDS is fully managed. It doesn't require a full-time DBA, the management's fairly easy and straightforward. Backups, snapshots, patching, HA, all easily configured through the AWS Management Console, which is pretty easy to work with. Multi-availability zone, you can say, hey, I have this cluster, and it's to be multi-available in region, multi-availability zones. Unfortunately, there are some cons with RDS, so for fine-tuning purposes, there's no root access to the database instance. You don't have instance actual type version control, so if your application is tied to a particular version of Oracle, you can't really tie to that, you don't have that fine-grained control. Data card replication for DR purposes doesn't work with RDS, and the instance type size is limited. So those are some of the cons with option 1. With option 2, which would be the Oracle database and the application on AWS and EC2, there is a number of pros. The support compliance, so licensing was compliant with the OEL AMI that Oracle provides, so licensing and supportability was built in. Complete control over the OS, the file system. You have complete root access. If you need to get in there and tune listeners, tune components of the database, you can. Just like bring your own DBA type of situation. And it can also become target for data card replication for DR purposes. Completely customizable for instance type. You can change the instance type as well. A lot more control, a lot more fine-grained control and flexibility with the EC2. Cons, you got to take on all the management tasks. RDS kind of does that for you, which is nice. So bring your DBA in the solution. And you have to bring your own license. Bring your own license to RDS as well, but in this case, you have to bring your own license and you have to use an OEL, Oracle Enterprise Linux AMI, for the supportability and for and support and licensing purposes. So, TaylorMade and DataPipe, we decided on option 2. It seemed to be the best fit for everybody. Fine-grained access control, which is what TaylorMade wanted. They luckily had a really advanced DBA on board, so they were able to get in there and they wanted to have the fine-grained control and access. They had a particular database version that worked for them, so they were able to install the exact version of the database and the application server. The traditional ability to migrate data in and out of the database, to go to migrate, backward recovery methodologies, that was all familiar and traditional to them. RDS kind of takes on that and changes it a little bit, but with this traditional route, they were able to have the traditional methodology they're used to. Complete access to the OS. You can root, SSH in, change config files, reboot things. You can break it, change it, but for the most part, it's like fine-tunable. The file system access. You don't get access to the file system in RDS. With this solution, you do. So you can get in there, you can take a look at logs, you can grab bits, you can add additional listener components. That's all there. Obviously, we talked about the performance tuning. Logging access was really important to them. They wanted to have fine-grained verbose log access, which you get with this solution. SysDBA privilege, that's not a privilege you get with RDS, so this was really huge to them. They wanted to have that user access. And then data card implementation and access. And this is just a very high level of what the solution was initially. So we have the data center, and we have a second-side IPsec tunnel, and we were using the ASM, so the Oracle, the ASM replication. And then we have the availability zone and app servers and the database. And this was an incredibly high-level overview of the initial solution we provided to TaylorMade. So there are definitely some technology challenges with going this route. For first, TaylorMade is a Red Hat Enterprise Linux shop. They weren't used to running OEL, even though it's really just a kernel header change between OEL and Red Hat Enterprise Linux. The reason why we had to go with the OEL and EMI is for many reasons. For the most part, the licensing and supportability wasn't there with anything else but the Enterprise Linux AMI. So we had to go with the AMIs provided by Oracle in order to learn how to support and for supportability purposes. Licensing is also another component of going with OEL-AMI, had to go that route. And then also the Oracle installer wouldn't work with anything else, so we had to go with the OEL-AMI. So the resolution was, well, OEL-AMI, and luckily Oracle provides that in the marketplace on AWS. Resistant application. So traditionally, like you have your database instances and you have your LUNs presented and all the schemas, and you have a tiered storage type of installation setup. In this case, with AWS, there are some limitations when it comes to storage. However, we're able to adjust the methodology to plug all this in and to provide the solution. So effectively, we went with one disk per ASM disk group, and we weren't doing any partitioning for each of those volumes. So, and there's a hard limit of 20 LUNs per instance that we had to work through. They were used to having tons of LUNs presented to their database server, and their methodology was like one LUN per schema effectively. And in some cases, they were broken out even more, like a schema was spread across several. So we had to change their methodology and approach to how they set their database. And then the security challenges that we presented with TaylorMade, we effectively decided to go with the Cloud Passage. We provided this as a solution to them to secure their installation and provide really they were after two-factor authentication, a lot of monitoring, vulnerability assessment, security monitoring, logging, all this stuff was like a packaged product with the Cloud Passage Halo product. So that tied in very nicely with the solution.
Yeah, just to jump in on part of the services that we provide with solutions on AWS is around our security services. And so we bundle this in by utilizing best-of-breed technologies like Cloud Passage, or you'll see a demo upstairs on FortiCloud. We recently did a two-factor authentication release for secure VPN access with FortiCloud. We bundle it into the full lifecycle of how we support that. So when we're talking about that whole running process of managing the NOC and SOC of what we do with runbooks, we bundle that all in so that when an event happens, we tie it into our actually security operations center, then we notify the clients based on that. In this case, two-factor was a requirement, so we chose to use Cloud Passage with this. And it did give us, as Jason mentioned, some of the vulnerability assessment piece, which we thought was a real key for their solution as well, which then all baked into the final solution as part of that sort of veneer of security services that we play on top of the pure solution with AWS.
So what does the entire solution look like? So here we have the complete solution as we've architected it for TaylorMade. You'll see on the left here we have their traditional brick and mortar data center. We have replication via IPsec tunnel, replicating their database. All the application tiers were rebuilt in the AWS component. And then once everything was established in AWS, we were easily able to replicate it to different availability zones for additional disaster recovery purposes. The data pipe managed cloud component of it was a big factor here. We provide a number of fine-grained management tools that allow for monitoring and management. And then the Cloud Passage component that was tied into all of it for security and two-factor authentication.
Yeah, and overlaying all of the solution then was at the very sort of bottom of it is the managed service piece, which would be the governance around any sort of compliance needs, the security, the automation. We had that real goal of building this in an automated fashion so that we could reproduce this in any region as needed, so that the system could stand up more than just a disaster recovery solution. Could be the basis for another install as we move forward, which is a real goal to the project. Okay, so as a business user, if Chris were here, he'd say, how does this solution, meet the original objectives of what we were trying to do here? And I think number one was making sure that the technical requirements were met.
Absolutely. So obviously the EBS, most organizations ERP, this is what's hit every day. The first thing that most people do in this channel is to log into this environment, check on leads and so on and so forth. It's the lifeblood of this organization in many. So having offsite backup, having a DR solution, having all of this work for them and was incredibly important. It was literally the lifeblood of this organization. Having a low RTO, absolutely a requirement for the solution. So the solution provided all that. We were able to come in and take care of all those requirements, and they never skipped a beat. It was pretty amazing. The cost savings are huge. On demand, think about this for a moment, folks. Like, they're only paying for what they use, other than the data transfer and storage. Most of these instances are usually just sitting idle. So it's only pay as you need, on demand, versus a traditional DR solution where, whether or not you're using it or not, you're still paying for it. So TaylorMade is expecting to see year over year 30% savings with the solution in place.
Yeah, and I think the big part of it was working with DataPipe. They were able to find a partner for their cloud needs. But really the feedback we've gotten has been around the cost savings, having on-demand disaster recovery versus fixed capital out expenses, plus the monthly charges for any sort of co-location requirements that they have on that. And the benefit of doing it in an automated fashion for the build-out has allowed us to quickly ramp up and test, so to meet their testing needs, which was one point we didn't really touch on, was around being able to spin up the environment very quickly in the specific region that can be deployed into a different region, run the full set of tests, and then spin that down so we save on some expense there. And that was our overview. That was our overview. Without one of our members, we went a little fast on that. But we definitely are here. We have a large team with us in the out by the booth as well. But we're happy to take any questions we might have on DR. Anything related to what we do or what the solution looks like.
Please.
How did you validate the EVAs and the models that changing their underlying business architecture for Oracle to produce the performance that you want?
There was a few dry runs. It wasn't just like deploy the solution and run with it. We definitely did a few dry runs and had to do a lot of hand holding. It's not straightforward. It's not black and white here. There is some tuning, there is some configuration that takes place. But overall, the performance was, if not as good, if not better, than a traditional brick and mortar installation.
They run that AWS site.
That's actually a good question. So they're still running out of their traditional data center. This is really a DR solution, but one thing I want to touch on is that this solution can quickly scale into a full-blown, it's disaster recovery, so it's designed to become the solution in the event of a disaster in your traditional data center. However, put this behind a load balancer, replicate this site in a different availability zone, you have yourself a complete EBS solution elsewhere, anywhere. It could be, you can put it behind CDN, put it behind a load balancer, put it behind GTM, and you have you can route traffic there and so on and so forth. So this effectively becomes like a second data center. They can utilize this site. Right now it's just set up for DR purposes, and everything's automated so that in the event that a listener fails to connect to the local brick and mortar data center that they have in Carlsbad, it'll cut over. But put places behind GTM, and there's no reason why the DR site couldn't also become a live production site. And it makes that with availability zones, and if you have the content, if you have users in Asia, for example, you have this site located there, you can manage traffic where it's for better performance.
Maybe Paul, I think that's the slide talk about that 1,000-mile geographic spread as opposed to metro.
That's right.
So if they were to do that, how would you get them going across regions?
West region.
Like going back outside of it, and it was a matter of
Yeah, so we just built we built our database and our application bits and instances and a different building zone, just tied it all together. Yeah, we just wired it all up. So sure? Yeah. No, yeah, yeah.
So I'm curious, so how frequent, so you say your customer is still operating out of the on-premises space or primary location. So how frequently is the solution tested? How frequently do they run production of the solution on their campus?
That's great. So their policies, their test. That's a great question, actually. A lot of DR solutions are implemented and untested for the most part. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of headaches, head scratching. Oh my God, we're going to touch our lab production system that's working. With this solution, combined with Cloud Passage and our monitoring services, we were able to do a lot of test runs with this client to make sure that they have a DR so normally when there's a DR test, there's a procedure that are written down, so on and so forth. So we worked with a client to develop this procedure to the point where the client is so comfortable with this that I believe they do so on a monthly basis. It's at their discretion how often they do so, but from what my last understanding of Chris was that they were testing the solution on a monthly basis. They were cutting over services, serving traffic from AWS, cutting services back over to their brick-and-mortar data center, with dropping zero packets and not providing any sort of disruption to their customers and clients. And Phil, yeah?
That was actually going to be my question as well. Now that this is implemented, what does their runbook look like? How are they testing this? And are they looking at this more like, I think you answered it, like, hey, I can just fail over the DR anytime. It be seamless to my user. Is that how it's being?
That's effectively how it's architected and designed. Absolutely. Yeah.
My users won't see it. I can do it, and I can run out of my DR location, and it's not like it has to be something that's that plain.
Yeah.
And it's not an event.
In fact, we have created a list of ways to fail over. So anything from pulling a cable, heaven forbid, you just pull a power plug if you want any data corruption. But there's a number of ways, like we can just change the routing table, we can pull a plug. We can simulate practically any type of disaster type of event. And in each of these cases, and obviously there's a lot of handholding here initially to make sure it all works. But in any of those cases, we're able to pull the plug, change the routing table, and it would come over. That's the architecture and design of the solution.
So these guys had, before this, they had traditional DR, and they had a business continuity plan, did business impact analysis, all that good stuff. Did you guys, did Dave help them augment that, change that, fit this new solution?
Absolutely. Yeah, because with the SunGuard DR solution, you're paying for that space whether you're using it or not.
Oh, I know.
The beauty here is that you're only paying for it.
Well.
Absolutely. I've had a lot of clients that this is a great SunGuard replacement use cases. But